I Miss Martins Obialo, and I'm a grad student at Dalhousie University here in Canada. And I would be speaking to you briefly on how to navigate grad school applications for Canadian schools specifically. So without further ado, I have some slides here which I believe would guide the course of this session. So I'm talking about the various funding pathways through which you can get funding for your graduate studies. And first of all, I would be talking about various funding opportunities. And the first one is research. Secondly, you have teaching assistantships. Then thirdly, we have university, faculty, and department-based scholarships. Now, these scholarships they vary from school to school. So there are schools that have more funding than others. So you may want to be sure of which school you're going for based on the funding available in those schools. Then we also have some external scholarships that are mostly given by bodies that are not within the institution, but then they are also available to students. So it's up to you to check funding boards and sources to be able to access these scholarship opportunities. So going forward, I would talk about research assistantships. As we know, Canada funding system is not as robust as the US. The US has lots of funding, but Canadian schools don't get as much funding as the schools in the US. So it may take some kind of, it may be stressful to access this funding. Honestly, that is something I would not deny, but if you know the ropes, you would be able to access these things without so much stress, I believe. So on research assistantships, we will talk about the sources and how to get to know if there are funding opportunities in the auspices of research assistantship. And that would be from the faculty lists, because most departments have their list of members there. So you just go to the department website, you check and find whatever faculty is aligned with your research interests. Then you can send me a code mail. Okay, so I just spoke about code mail. I don't know, maybe David would have spoken about this in a previous webinar or something, but we'll probably come back to this end of the story. So you send them a code mail, you find their research interests, you get their email on the department website, send them a code mail and tell them about yourself and your interest in having them supervise your project going forward. Then we have the lab pages. So various labs have their different lab pages, depending on how funded the lab is and how open to the public they want to be. They can have private pages where they post opportunities and they also post about their research outcomes. So it's an opportunity for you to see what this lab is doing and if it is really what you want to do, and if they also have, if they take students like you. So then we have the social media handles for the principal investigators. So mostly you post on LinkedIn, you then post on X, formerly Twitter. So you just try to reach out to them via those platforms and you try to be as official as possible. You don't go to someone's page and start asking questions like, is this still available? That's a turn up already. Anyway, so you just, they post most of their openings on their social media handles. So you just get to know them. And then how do you get to know them? Probably by searching professors in the field you have interest in. You could see lots of professors in those fields. So and if you know the faculty members' names from the department website, it's easier for you to search them up on LinkedIn and X, as the case may be. So we move on to the next one, which is teaching assistantship. Okay, then we have NSCRC funded competition results for PIs. Okay, so I found this site sometime last year. I think it was posted by one of the scholars somewhere. I can't remember the specific one. But he shared this site, and I found it really useful because I was able to know what faculty had gotten funding from the Canadian government. So that was an avenue for me to reach out to them to tell them I have interest in so and so, and I could share a bit of myself. So first of all, I found the site and I knew that they had funding of so amount. I'm not going to quote how much they have anyway, but then it just gave me an idea of the available funding to them and how I could sell myself specifically in a way that could grant me an interview. So anyway, I will share the site at the end of the presentation so you can just have a look for yourself. But I must admit that most of the fundings on this I would be sharing here are mostly directed around those in the STEM-based courses, that's science, engineering, mathematics, and technology. So you mostly have this format work for those in the sciences more. So I will talk about teaching assistantships. So we have teaching assistantship mostly from getting to email the graduate coordinators or department admins because they are the ones mostly in charge of assistantships. So you get to mail them, send them code mails, tell them you have interest in applying to the program, and if there are available TA jobs for you. I mean, these are really jobs that you do right on campus. And then in turn, they get to pay you some amount of money or maybe contribute towards your tuition. Then still on the PIs, that's the principal investigators. So you get to reach out to them to ask if they have any available TA opportunities, which is teaching assistantships. So if they do, they could respond and you could take it up from there. So we also have university and faculty-based scholarships, which I spoke about earlier. So I know this scholarship is mostly I know it's for specific schools like Dalhousie, UBC, University of Calgary, Alberta, and Memorial. They have this huge funding called KILAM. That is, it's actually very huge, like in the tune of over 42K. And they cover your tuition. So it's a big funding opportunity. So they are for specific schools in Canada. I think it's based on the research ranking or some metrics I don't know about, honestly. But I know these fundings are available in these schools. And talking about Dalhousie, I can tell you because I know someone that's on this particular funding opportunity, and she's really having a good time, honestly. So we talk about provincial scholarships for international students. So this could be country-specific or also program-specific. But talking about Nova Scotia, which is the province I'm in, they have this Nova Scotia graduate scholarship that is open to international students. I think it's an entrance scholarship. So you only get it on your entrance. So you don't get it after you've stayed more than a year. Yeah, mostly on your first term in school. And it's still a good opportunity for those that don't have any backup. There are also some small bursary awards that is usually given within the term, depending on your performance in the previous term or so. So, I mean, this is not so huge, but it goes a long way depending on how much is on offer. Then we talk about external scholarships. And this, I would say, is specifically for energy-related programs. Yeah, I think I applied to this fund opportunity sometime last year, and I could tell you that it's actually a very big opportunity for those that are really that have interest in sustainable energy. And this may not just be sustainable energy. It depends on how much you sell yourself to the funding organization. You could just check them out. Google search will do that for you. So the next one is MasterCard. Okay, I know McGill is open at the moment for MasterCard scholarship, so it's an opportunity you may want to check out. Then we know that Canadian universities mostly, they have this U15 group of research universities where they have this U15 group of schools, they have the most research funding available for students and researchers. So it's of great help for you to really check out these schools. And first of all, we have these ones here. We have Alberta, Calgary, Dalhousie, Manitoba, McMaster, McGill, and the rest. Then we also have this ones. So it's of great interest to you if you want to check them out. Then you may want to consider this. Okay, so we've not spoken about how the things you really need to get in order to make a successful application to these schools. And one thing I believe we should know by now is your academic transcripts. It's really important for you to have that before you start your application journey. And then you may want to have your degree certificate, then a 2-1 grade in your first degree. I mean, that's like barest minimum if you want to do a master's in Canada. As much as we know that some schools in the US or some schools still give opportunities to those that have below 2.2, but for Canadian schools, from my findings, I haven't seen anyone that has said they were admitted or even had or got funding with their first degree below a 2.1. So, I mean, not to deter anybody from applying, but I mean, it's good that you know what's obtainable. Then you must have more than 75% in the last 2 years of your studies. Okay, I can relate to this because there's somebody I know that almost got a fully funded offer in a lab that would have sorted out all her bills, but she had less than 75% in the last 2 years of her studies. I mean, she had a 2.1, but she had, in her last 2 years of studies, she had less than a 3.8 or 3.9, if I'm not mistaken. That's her CGPA. So they rate you based on your last 2 years in school, and then the overall, which is your 2.1 grade. So if you're still in school, it will be beneficial for you to focus on your last 2 years in school. Make sure you have above 80%. So you don't fall into that lower quadrant of people that will be struggling with 75% in order to get admission and even funding. So though I didn't include this part, but I know for Dalhousie University, if you have above 80%, that's from 4.5 and above, I think so, if I'm not mistaken. That's a first class. You would get an entrance scholarship. That's almost certain. Yeah, if you don't get from one of those huge funding sources, you would most likely get from your department and faculty. So that's something I would want to state clearly. I don't know how it works in other schools, but I know for Dalhousie, especially science and engineering, you will most likely get either of those scholarships. Then a captivating code mail. Why am I saying captivating? Because, I mean, we have seen lots of code mail formats online. I mean, there are too many code mail formats online where we could just do some small editing and send it out. Yeah, that's okay, but I believe that you should do more than just that kind of code mail. I believe you should do more. So there's this code mail I saw. I was impressed, honestly. I wasn't the one it was sent to, but when I saw it, I was really impressed because the code mail was so good that the lady in question got an invitation to interview with the professor, but then she didn't have the good grades, so that was it. So how do you get this code mail out? I will talk about this in the next slide. So though Canadian schools don't ask for English proficiency certificates, but it's pertinent that you have the certificate to show if need be. I mean, if you have it, it's fine, but if you don't have it, you could just show letter of English proficiency to show that you studied in English. That's fine for most schools. And then GRE. So GRE is program specific to most schools. But I know that McGill and a couple of schools, especially in pharmacy and the health field, they demand that you have your GRE results in order to apply. And that could also apply to MBA programs, that you also have a a GMAT score or something. I don't know, but I believe that you just have to check the program to be able to determine what is the acceptable test score for you to be admitted. And then a potential supervisor. This is where code mail comes into place, because you have to reach out to the professors to inquire if they'll be able to supervise your research, and if you can be their student, and if they have enough funding to sponsor your studies. I mean, it's not a big deal, because even the whites over here do the same thing. They still send out code mails. So it's not like it's just for international students. Canadian residents to do that. So it's okay if you send a code mail to inquire if they have funding for you. I mean, at some point I was really shy to ask if they had funding. Like, I was just cutting around corners, asking for supervision and not talking about funding. You will get lots of persons willing to supervise you, but no funding. So you make sure you ask about funding. They could have a way around it. Some of them could even offer to review your scholarship application documents, depending on how nice they are. Then some facts you need to know, that most of these funding opportunities, honestly, they are not free. It's not free money. You have a task to, you have a role to play. You have your research duties, which entails that you go to the lab like a regular 9-to-5 job you do. And then you could also have some teaching assistantships that require you to handle tutorials in classes and all of that, depending on your experience and skill set. So it's not free money. It's not like there's no, you're just being handed money to just study. No, they expect something in return. So it's on you to know and be prepared for this kind of roles when you start, because so you don't come in surprised. Okay, so here are a few tips I believe that would help you in your application. So you have the enthusiasm for research. Why am I focusing on research? Talking about research more because that's where most of the funding is. So these Canadian schools I listed earlier, I mean, there are much more than 15 schools that have funding, honestly, but these ones have the most funding in Canada. Though you could still find few that still have some money to fund the studies. So depending on how much is on offer. But one thing that would stand you out among, that will make you stand out candidates for any position is an enthusiasm for research. And this is, you can show this by your previous experience. Let's say you have an undergrad project that you have worked on in the past. It's okay if you just get to clean it up and try to publish it. That would count for experience. That would count for you putting your best foot forward to land your most preferred research position. And then prior research experience. Yeah, it's not common knowledge. It's common knowledge everywhere that the Nigerian schools don't have so many labs that you can carry out research during your undergrad. I mean, like we do over here, but then it's okay if you can, if you're still in school, that's a plus for you. But if you're out of school, you could just, I mean, yeah, before I began applying for grad school sometime in 2021, I had this group of friends. We had this group where we could just work on a topic of interest. If it's a simulation project, we do the simulation and publish our results. So that was counting for experience along the way. So I just packaged a very beautiful story that made up my research experience really robust, and that was it. So it's okay if you collaborate with your peers, your friends, and people you know that have similar goals with you to be able to do some kind of publication. And this is not just specific to publications. Let's say you have interest in working on sustainable energy systems. So you could just take some reasonable courses on Coursera and other platforms to really show how much you have invested in gaining knowledge in this field. And that would count for you also. Then one thing that you need to do is to select a research area and build competence in it. How do you do this? There are lots of materials out there for you to really gain first-hand knowledge on current research advances in the field of your interest. So it's okay if you decide to select an area. I mean, don't be so rigid about your interest, but then make sure your interest is relevant with current global discourse. Because you don't want to work on something that's really obsolete, honestly. It's not something that you would want to try, frankly speaking. So you try to build confidence. How do you do this? There are lots of research papers out there. If you have issues with working on research papers, I don't know, maybe David has something for us, I don't know. But then you would want to download these papers. I know they could be hard to access sometimes if you don't have some level of access to these publications, but I know there are still free publications out there for you to access to be able to gain knowledge and understand what's going on in your field. And I forgot to mention that you could also, in your quest for research experience, you will do yourself some good if you have the opportunity of working on a review paper. That's very okay. I mean, that's to show your writing skill, your ability to work on, to understand current research advances in your field, and that also counts as research experience for you. So one more thing, don't be vague about wanting to get a master's degree. Why am I saying this? Because somehow we all, in this underlying goal for us to go for our master's is the subtle dream of we trying to relocate abroad. Yeah. But then that's like secondary. When you try to sell yourself to these professors, they know you want to leave your country, honestly. There's no lie. But it's okay if you try to be passionate about the research area. And that's where building competence comes into place. I already spoke about this. So, and then code mails should appeal to the PI's soft spot. How would you do this? This is very simple. You know, most of our code mails are very rigid. We are like, hello, Professor this, I'm interested in this and this and this. I want to join your group. I've seen what you're doing. I like that your research is really robust and all of those crap we speak about in our code mails. How about you take this approach? You find a research paper that was published by the professor you want to work with, and then you tell him a bit about the paper, and then if the guy is a famous guy or a lady or a female professor, I don't know, if he's very famous, you just tell them about something that has made them really famous over time. Yeah, that appeals to their soft spot. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I've seen this play out so many occasions, especially with my current supervisor. I mean, he's a guy that likes to be told about his research outcomes and achievement over time. So by doing that, you just get to appeal to their soft spot, and they know that you can't appease somebody and then not get a good response, honestly. So it's okay if you try to sell yourself the rigid way we do, but then make sure you try to put in something different from the rest of the pack, because most people like you will be turning in applications and they'll be talking almost the same thing. So make sure you stand out in your code mail. One thing I forgot to mention is that these professors get up to 30 code mails every week. I mean, more than 30, honestly. So you do yourself more good by standing out with your approach to the code mail thing. And then lastly, God, because all of these things we are talking about, we don't want to undermine the part that there's somebody that knows much more, and we can always pray for direction on all of these things. So don't forget this factor. And yeah, why Canada? Okay, so I put this together for us to really understand why people prefer to come to Canada. I mean, you can always go to the US for your master's or any other country of choice, but then here, these are things that really drive people to Canada. They have this shorter pathway to residency, which could be 1 year, could be 3 years, depending on the province you choose to go to. And then you have this work permit for 3 years when you go for a master's or PhD program. So you are not under pressure to leave the country or get a job immediately after graduation, which could take a while, but then you are covered because you have 3 years to stay and do anything you want to do and work towards getting residency within these 3 years. Then you have lots of emerging fields. I'm talking about emerging fields because there are lots of companies moving to Canada, lots of organizations moving to Canada. So if you're into the energy sector, that's my interest area. So you know that it's actually something you really want to do because Canada is so big and they are also very accommodating. So you may want to look in this direction because of the opportunities that are bound in this new fields that will need people of competence to man these jobs. Then there are tons of opportunities to even switch to any field of your choice. I know people that come here and then they want to change their occupations, their interests, their fields to something very different. Imagine somebody working in engineering and wants to move to the health sector. I mean, that's ridiculous, I know, but then it's something you can do easily here in Canada. Just make sure you know your ropes, know how you get things done, and within 2 years you've done that, and you're well comfortable getting things done by yourself. And also, depending on the interest of the province you are in, let's say you're in a province that needs so many health workers, you could switch to a health field, and it's not a big deal. You're still getting the desired remuneration you desire. And then opportunities to migrate to other countries. There are people that come here and they see here as a stepping stone to some other dream place. I mean, it's something you may want to consider along your journey, but then it's also available to you. And then lastly, there is enough room for everybody to come to Canada to study. So depending on how well you want to put emphasis on your application, just make sure you know your ropes, or make sure you do the best you can in terms of getting your application out there. I mean, it gets to a point where you want to give up on this journey. I mean, it's in your first year, first few months, you may not get responses. That I would admit that you most likely not get responses in your first few weeks of trying. You could get depressed, you could get exhausted and want to give up. But please don't give up. For me, my story is quite interesting because before I came to Canada, I had gone to Korea, like David mentioned. So that's where, I mean, thanks to David's group, that was for me, that was like a stepping stone to get here. But I mean, it has really helped me to understand what I really wanted for myself. So don't just give up don't be so rigid about where you want to be, but then make sure you have a goal about where you want to go. If Canada is still your goal, I believe that's why you're here. So you would rather not give up on your first trial and first few rejections, because I mean, the way funding opportunities come in this part of the world, you just don't want to be I mean, a professor can tell you no today, and in the next 3 months, he secures some huge funds that could sponsor you. So don't say, because I've mailed him the first time, I won't mail him again. Send that code mail again, send after 6 months, send after 3 months, send after some time. Don't give up just yet. Because I know somebody that mailed my supervisor at some point and there was no response. That was like 6 months ago. And then in the last 3 months, the person mailed again and got a good response. So you don't want to be in a place where you feel like you don't want to send that code mail because you've sent it before. No, send it again. There's no harm in trial. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's it for me, mostly. Yeah, I spoke about a link that I would send to you. So this is the link. I think I'll put this link in the comment section. So you can access fundings from, so you would know researchers, that's professors that have secured funding for various research projects. This is from the government. So I didn't put, I don't know, or I don't have a way of knowing funding that is secured from private organizations, private partnerships with various labs, but I believe that this would give you a head start on what to do. And then if you check out the various lab websites as is aligned to your interests, you would find dates and maybe current opportunities for your field in various labs you desire to go to. So, but meanwhile, you can just have this for starts. So I'll put it in the comments. I'll put it in the box for you, in the comment section for you. Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you so much, Martins. That was awesome. So I know everyone asked some questions. So please can you use the hand symbol to ask your questions if you have any, and I will just call you to ask your questions. Another thing, Martins, can you briefly share how you got your scholarship actually? Like how did you get it?
Okay, yeah. Okay, my scholarship was really interesting because I mean I at some point I felt like I just knew my previous place, my previous institution wasn't just for me at the time. So I knew I needed to move. Firstly, I mean that's some very personal goals for me, but I'll just share some details here. So I knew I couldn't continue there because it wasn't aligning with my long-term plan going forward, though there are some details I don't want to share. But then and I realized that I saw this guy where he was speaking about his research somewhere on yeah, he had this speaking engagement somewhere in the UK. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I spoke about his research, and then I spoke about how his research outcome is really helping the industry advance. And I think that was his soft spot because the guy that likes his work being spoken about. So I reached out to him and he had this, oh my God, we had this interview that lasted for almost an hour. Like I had like 3 professors interviewing me at the same time. I mean, that was crazy, but I scaled through. So we spoke at length and they asked me to apply. Yeah, you don't know this guy, but it's something that was really worth it. I mean, it was worth the time spent, it was worth the investment of energy and stress I went through for that interview and preparing for it because I had to make lots of presentations on that particular interview session. But yeah, David, is there more I need to speak about? Tell me.
Oh, not no worry, no worry. I think I will give room for people to ask their questions. So the
Yeah.
first person that signaled is Olayinka Wafel. Please, can you ask the questions?
Hello, good afternoon. Please, the first question is about the GRE. Is the GRE compulsory? Because now, okay, it was even today I checked the price for GRE, and now in Nigeria is around 200 and something thousand. That's the number one thing. Secondly, is the recommendation letter. Is recommendation letter compulsory also? Then okay, just that two for now.
Okay. Yeah, recommendation letter is something that is compulsory for grad school. Honestly, you can't escape that part. So if you left school a couple of years ago, like more than 3 years ago, then you can easily reach out to your employer to send a recommendation on your behalf, at least one. Then you will somehow you just get to speak with some professor in your school because there's no way you won't have someone that can speak about your academic progress or experience because you really need that. You're going to school, it's not like a job. So you need to have at least one academic referee. And then your second question, sorry, I didn't get that.
It's about GRE.
Okay, GRE. Yeah, GRE, like I said, is for specific programs. It's not for every program. I didn't write GRE, honestly. And I know friends that didn't take GRE at all. But then there are people that, okay, I know those in pharmacy and yeah, I know pharmacy at least. Pharmacy McGill, they will ask you for GRE, like conditional admission that can only be processed if you have your GRE and other requirements. But then and also that's still for some MBA programs. You also need your GMAT score to be able to get an unconditional offer.
Thank you for that. Please don't forget to send the link to the funded project to
Yes, I'll do.
yeah. Then also I will mention that the recording of this Zoom meeting will be made available later in the day, so I can always send it to my group page. So we have Tosin Adeoye for a question.
Yeah, thank you, scholars. Really appreciate this opportunity. My question is, in like a month ago now, I reached out to MCG. I study statistics anyway, first and second degree in statistics, and I'm kind of looking into biostatistics because currently I work as a research with a multinational company as a research executive. So I reached out to MCG University and particularly the Agade School coordinator. And interestingly, the guy has been replying my mail back to back almost every week. So we had a long chat and he was able to simplify things for me. And he told me I can write a waiver for GRE, but they cannot waive the application fee, which I think it was an interesting one. So at the end of the day, I put up a waiver for GRE, and what I will receive is that GRE is not even required. And I'm kind of confused. If the coordinator is telling me GRE is necessary, but I need to just request for a waiver, and I put up the waiver and they are telling me it's not required because the application is currently on. So that gives me a kind of issue. This is as at last week. I've not even replied back to him to say, this is what I discovered. Please, can you guide better?
Okay, I think most schools have requirements stated on the various program pages. So it's of interest for you to really check what's available, what's stated on the program page as admission requirements. So you don't get lost in all of this back and forth thing you're doing with the program coordinator. Or if that's not the person you're emailing, I think you should really speak to the program coordinator, if I'm not mistaken, if that's not the person you're speaking to. On the other hand, you could also speak to the admin secretary because I know you would find that email on the department website. So just ask in clear terms to clarify your status to know if you really need your GRE. Sorry, what school are you applying to again?
MCG.
MCU.
MCG University.
Oh, okay.
That's McGill.
Yeah, that's McGill. McGill. Yeah, I think McGill, check for most programs. I know most programs in McGill require you to have extra score, maybe GRE or GMAT, depending on the program you're applying to. So just check to confirm. But like I said earlier, the guy I know that applied to McGill and got into McGill, he had to provide this GRE test score to be able to be given unconditional admission. So that may be the case. Can't be so sure.
So thank you. I will have to ask some questions. I think some people don't want to ask questions. So before I left Nigeria, I applied to several schools in Canada. Shaka Sherman is one of them. I forgot there's this school that gave me an admission. I had a rapport with what's it called? The PI, and it was like, okay, I should apply. Then I applied, then all of a sudden the guy just went missing on me. So when I think it's one of those things we experience when you're applying to grad school. Like even when you're talking to a coordinator, they will just stop replying you. So I think for people that probably like they're just leaving school, for instance, in court. So so what do you think they can do? To be honest, I think you made mention of them. So what do you think they can do to be able to like have access to this funding aside from maybe going to funding projects? You know, when we first leave school, we don't have like this first-hand experience that we have. You know, some people don't even know what GRE is, to be honest. Like they have been doing this for like 2 years. Some people don't know what GRE is, some people don't know what IS is, some people don't know what TOEFL is, and some people don't know what WES is.
Okay.
So how do you think for people like that? And there's a problem between STEM and non-STEM. That's another huge gap as well. So how do you think Canada has been able to like help fill this gap for like for newbies and for both for people in STEM and non-STEM? I know you made mention of it before, but I know some people just join us in between the meeting.
Okay, yeah. So talking about those that, let's start with those that don't know about this various test scores and what is required. I think the first thing you need to do if you're applying to a school is to know the application requirements. Like, first of all, for me, what I do is I sample a couple of schools to know, and I get a book to list out what they require to be able to gain admission into my program of choice. So if IELTS is required, you should know that IELTS is English. It's a testing system where they test your English proficiency. You know that you're going to take IELTS, but I don't think IELTS is necessary for most programs in Canada based on your language of instruction in your first degree. If you studied in Nigeria, then GRE, that could be an issue because some schools still ask you for GRE depending on your program of interest. So it's okay for you to really consult your program page. That's, in fact, that's your first point of call when you want to apply to any program. Then talking about people that are in non-STEM fields. I mean, I've spoken a lot about those in the STEM fields, but those in the non-STEM fields seem to have this, they seem to be segregated away from all of this research-funded things. Okay, first of all, I want to state that I know people in the non-STEM fields in Canada that still get funding. So this whole code mail thing still works for them. Yes. Then having good results is a plus for you. If you've left school and you can't do anything about your results again, it's okay. But if you have a 2-1, that's where to start from. Having funding in non-STEM field is very possible. How do you do this? You start by code mails. You start by looking up the various scholarships available to you as international students in that particular institution. And then, because I know that I don't know for most, but I know for my institution, most of the programs, they have requirements that clearly on the site. Funding requirements, you have funding requirements, you also have scholarships available to you as a student coming from so and so place. So it's okay if you decide to access it, because those funding may not just be there on the basis of just STEM and non-STEM. They are there because you are applying to the program. So it's okay for you to really check out this sites. I don't know if I answered that question, but maybe you can